She sat there trembling, telling the court I was unsafe. That I'd ruined her. But she didn't know I had her old session logs, the ones where she practiced how to fake it. I dropped them on the judge's desk. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Her performance was over. I found out about the setup 5 weeks before she filed. Her name's Julia. We'd been married 6 years. No kids, 2 cats, shared a condo with big windows and bigger silences. I always thought she was just distant. Tired. The way people get when life doesn't look like the brochure. Turns out, she was rehearsing. The first clue came on a Thursday night, a half glance at her screen as she sat curled on the couch, typing. Her notes app was open. A line caught my eye before she could swipe it closed. Try using the word pattern more. Therapists respond to that. She looked up. Smiled too fast. Work stuff. She wasn't working. She hadn't been for months. Said she needed a break to focus on healing. I supported her. Paid the bills. Cooked. Cleaned. Gave her space. Thought that's what a husband does. Instead, she was building a character. I started watching closer. Little things started clicking, the vague posts on social, the way she mentioned therapy like a shield. My therapist says I need boundaries. I'm learning to speak my truth. You don't get to decide what abuse is for me. I hadn't even raised my voice. At first, I thought maybe I had missed something. Maybe I was too cold. Too rational. Maybe she really did feel caged. So I offered therapy, couples, one-on-one, whatever she needed. She declined. I just don't feel safe enough for that right now. Not safe. That word stuck like glass in my throat. I stopped sleeping. Stopped talking unless spoken to. Gave her more room, less resistance. Thought if I shrank enough, the tension would die. It didn't. She started recording arguments. Or trying to. Leaving her phone face down on the table. Telling me to say that again whenever I got serious. I'd find her journaling on the patio for hours. Pages filled with half-formed accusations. One night, she left her notebook open. I read one line before guilt stopped me. He has to seem unstable, that's the only way I can win the narrative. That word again. Narrative. That's when I understood. This wasn't about healing. It was about erasure. Replacing me with a caricature of control and cruelty. One she could parade around in court, in therapy, maybe even online. I didn't confront her. I documented everything. I started my own therapy, with a court-certified professional. Told them everything. Got official notes. Recorded sessions. Legal time-stamping. Cold facts. Then I called her former therapist. The one she stopped seeing 6 months ago, before she switched to someone more validating. I posed as her emergency contact. Asked for a copy of her session records for continuity. It worked. 3 days later, I got the PDF. And there it was, a blueprint of the performance. Client expressed guilt over misleading her spouse about emotional distress. Client admitted to researching abuse patterns to better communicate discomfort. Client described planning a narrative to avoid confrontation. It wasn't just messy. It was scripted. I read it 3 times. Then I called my lawyer. The lawyer's name is Evan Liston. Clean suit. Clean words. No interest in drama, only outcomes. He listened. Took notes. Didn't blink when I said she was laying groundwork to paint me as abusive. You're not the first. That's all he said. Like it was weather. Like lies this sharp were just part of the climate now. He reviewed the notes from her old therapist. His face didn't move. These are gold. She was dumb to leave them behind. Dumb wasn't the right word. She was confident. Confident I'd never fight dirty. That I'd fold under the weight of the accusation. She didn't know how long I'd been watching. The next week was quiet. Julia moved through the apartment like a shadow, kind, soft, deliberate. The kind of softness that's studied. She'd brush my arm in the kitchen, make small talk about groceries. At night, she'd journal in bed while I pretended to sleep. I copied everything. By Friday, she made her move. I came home from work to find a handwritten note on the table. Not text. Not email. Pen and paper, classic. I need time. I've filed for temporary separation. Please don't contact me directly. My lawyer will be in touch. No signature. Just a line drawn under the last word. Like the end of a sentence that never belonged to me in the first place. She was gone. Her closet half empty. Toothbrush missing. Phone disconnected. But the mask was already cracking. That night, my neighbor, the one who lives across the hall, knocked. Nervous. I don't want to intrude, but your wife said some things. To the building staff. About feeling unsafe. I nodded. Expected it. Said you'd screamed at her. That she was scared you might do something. That was the moment the chessboard came into focus. She wasn't just leaving, she was setting a scene. Prepping the audience. Framing the lighting. Rehearsing her lines. I checked with our building manager the next day. Sure enough, she'd submitted a request to flag any unauthorized entry by estranged spouse. I wasn't even off the lease yet. The thing is, I never yelled. Not once. Never raised a hand. Never even raised my tone above conversational. But that's the brilliance of her play. The accusation doesn't need proof. Just tone. Just trembling. Just enough suggestion. So I played colder. Evan filed a response immediately. We petitioned for early access to her recent therapy records, the new therapist. We knew she'd object. We wanted her to. Because objecting meant acknowledging those sessions held something. In the meantime, I added layers. Video logs. Time-stamped voice recordings from nights she claimed I broke down. Each one showed me sitting, silent, folding laundry, making tea, watching her journal. No threats. No heat. Just a man trying to coexist with the story being written around him. I even planted a line, one night on the phone with a friend I knew she still monitored. I hope she finds what she's looking for. I just want this over. Neutral. Measured. Recorded. Let her therapist try to paint over that. Then, finally, the summons arrived. She filed officially. Citing emotional volatility and unsafe environment. Claimed she'd felt intimidated, isolated, gaslit. She quoted terms. Buzzwords. Diagnoses she'd never been given. Built a courtroom monologue for a judge she hadn't even met. But here's the thing she didn't account for. Court isn't TikTok. Judges don't need hashtags. They need paper. Consistency. Records. And I had them all. Court isn't like the movies. No gasps. No wooden gavel slams. Just cold lights, stiff chairs, and the slow shuffle of lives breaking on paper. Julia wore navy blue. Hair back. No makeup. Subtle bruise tone eyeshadow, just enough to imply without saying. She walked in flanked by her attorney, Eliza Merton. Young, polished, performative. A perfect fit. They didn't look at me. The judge was late. 5 minutes. Long enough for her to fake a tremble when asked if she needed water. Evan leaned in and whispered. She's overplaying already. Don't react. I didn't. They opened with her statement. Julia spoke with the breathy pauses of a TED Talk about trauma. Said I was distant. That I withheld affection. That I hovered. That I made her feel like a prisoner in her own mind. She quoted things I never said. Mimicked tones I'd never used. Gave dates that never lined up. And then she said it. There was one night I truly feared for my safety. That line sat there like a loaded gun. Everyone waited. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The lie had been planted. Watered. Now it bloomed. Evan stood. Calm. He didn't argue. He handed the judge a single binder. Inside. Time-stamped video stills. Phone logs. Her own text messages. And finally, the session notes from her previous therapist. We'd like to submit these as defense exhibits. Julia's face drained. Her hands froze mid-thigh, gripping her dress like it might hold her lies in place. The judge flipped through the binder. Slowly. Page by page. No expression. Evan continued. We believe these documents show not only a lack of evidence for the allegations, but a calculated attempt to preemptively frame my client. He paused. Let the silence underline the word frame. Her lawyer objected. Claimed invasion of privacy. Said the notes were unauthorized. But they weren't. Julia had signed a general release during a transfer of care between therapists. Routine. Standard. Legally binding. Her own signature was at the top of the document. The judge asked for a break. Julia didn't move. In the hallway, Evan turned to me. We just cut off the air supply. She'll shift tactics now. Probably try to reconcile. I laughed once. No sound. Sure enough, that evening, I got a text. First one in weeks. I think we've both made mistakes. Can we talk without lawyers? I didn't answer. 10 minutes later. I don't want this to get ugly. I let that one rot too. At 1:34 a.m., she sent a voice message. I didn't listen. I just downloaded it, timestamped it, and sent it to Evan. Let her voice explain itself later, in a court that didn't care how soft she sounded in the dark. By the next hearing, the narrative had changed. Her lawyer opened with a different tone. Less victim, more misunderstood wife. Claimed she had been overwhelmed. That her experience of events may not align with reality, but that doesn't make them less real to her. It was the emotional alibi version of pleading the fifth. The judge wasn't impressed. He ordered a pause on all asset motions. Required both parties to submit to independent psychological evaluations. Neutral third party. That rattled her. She blinked twice too fast. Sucked in her cheeks. Because therapy had been her fortress. And now it was evidence. The court-appointed psychologist was an older woman named Dr. Miriam Clark, silver bun, silence like a blade, the kind of presence that strips theatrics down to bone. She scheduled us separately. Julia went first. When it was my turn, she barely glanced at me before opening a folder already thick with highlights. You recorded her? I nodded. After I realized I wasn't living with a wife. I was living with a version of myself she was writing in third person. Dr. Clark didn't smile. She clicked her pen and asked questions. Precise. Neutral. No sympathy. No cues to perform. She asked about my childhood. My work. My response patterns. My worst fears. I told her the truth. I didn't care that she didn't love me anymore. I cared that she wanted to destroy the version of me that had. 3 weeks passed before the evaluations were submitted. They didn't tell us what they said, but Evan got a feeling. She didn't pass the mirror test. Bet you anything she spun contradictions. He was right. The next hearing opened with a motion from her side. They wanted to withdraw the emotional abuse claim. No explanation. No apology. Just a line through the accusation like it was a typo in a grocery list. The judge raised an eyebrow. Given the weight of the initial complaint, this pivot raises concern. Eliza Merton cleared her throat. My client wishes to focus on moving forward rather than litigating pain. Translation, she knew the tapes didn't tremble. Because in them, she didn't sound scared. She sounded strategic. I'd captured her casual voice, relaxed, unguarded. Recorded the nights she left the oven on and blamed me. The mornings she said, "You'll never win this. Even if I lie, they'll believe me." She was right, at first. Now. Those lies had dates. Context. Echoes. The judge didn't strike the original complaint. He flagged it. In legal terms, she perjured her emotional truth. Back at home, she tried again. This time with nostalgia. A letter. Handwritten. 3 pages. I miss what we had. You were always calm. Gentle. I never felt unsafe. I just felt invisible. That line. I never felt unsafe. I scanned it. Sent it to Evan. Added it to the folder labeled Narrative Breaks. Because what she didn't understand is this. Abuse isn't a costume. You don't unzip it when the courtroom lights go down. Either I was the monster she claimed, or I wasn't. And every piece of her communication, texts, calls, journal entries she'd accidentally backed up to our cloud, said otherwise. She wanted to own the story. I brought receipts. That week, the court moved to Phase 2, Division of Assets. Her case was gutted. Without abuse claims, she lost leverage. No spousal support. No primary residence rights. She tried to argue for emotional damages. Evan laughed once, under his breath. Only damage she'll walk away with is to her reputation. And maybe that was worse. Because Julia doesn't do silence well. She thrives on perception. Sympathy. Applause. And now. All the applause was gone. The fallout wasn't immediate. That's not how this works. It's not a crash. It's a slow peel, silence where there used to be claps, glances where there used to be hugs. The kind of social death you only recognize when no one reposts your birthday photo. Julia felt it before she admitted it. She tried to compensate. Instagram stories full of faux healing. Yoga mats. Quote slides. New chapters and setting boundaries. But the comments dried up. Her therapist's shout-out post. Quiet. Her sister's baby photos. Unliked. Old college friends. Ghosted her one by one. People weren't cruel. They were quiet. And quiet, for someone like Julia, is the loudest punishment of all. I never said a word publicly. Didn't post. Didn't hint. Didn't reclaim the narrative. I let the facts sit in inboxes and legal filings and trusted that silence would do what shouting never could. I did get one DM. From her friend Naomi, the only one I halfway trusted. She wrote. I believed her. I wanted to. But then I read the evaluations. I'm sorry. That was enough. Meanwhile, Julia started bleeding in other areas. Her job interview at a local nonprofit. Cancelled mid-process after HR reviewed her online court record. Her new therapist. Disengaged after realizing the client had manipulated clinical notes in the past. Didn't formally discharge, just stopped scheduling. And the worst part? She knew it was her fault. But she couldn't say that. She still tried to frame herself as the misunderstood one. Sent a mass email to our old mutuals. Subject line, my side of the truth. It landed like a stone in a dry well. No one responded. Except one guy, James, my old roommate, who sent it to me with a single line. She really thought you'd never fight back. She did. Because I never raised my voice. Never slammed a door. Never gave her the villain she needed. Instead, I documented. Sat still. Let her write fiction while I collected footnotes. That's what killed her narrative, not rage, not revenge. Accuracy. And now, her voice didn't carry anymore. Every time she tried to spark a new flame, a new friendship, a date, a job, the whispers followed. Not because I spread them. But because she left a trail soaked in performance and paper. There was one last attempt. A lawyer letter. Polite. Formatted. Ridiculous. Our client requests the removal of any documents or digital records from third-party sources that may cause reputational damage beyond the scope of court proceedings. Evan replied with 3 lines. All records were obtained legally. All responses were reactive. Consequences are not liable. That was the final email. Julia stopped trying after that. Moved across town. Changed her last name back. Deleted half her socials. Last I heard, she was working freelance, ghostwriting copy for other people's healing journeys. Fitting. She used to be the narrator. Now she's just a footnote. There's no power like paper. Not emails. Not texts. Not whispers or threads. Paper. Stamped. Filed. Verified. That's what I brought to the final hearing. A thick, neat binder labeled Chronology of Truth. Inside. Dates, mapped against claims. Original session notes from her first therapist. Screenshots of messages she sent friends mid-lie. Psychological evaluations that painted a very different picture than the one she sold. Her own handwriting, the page I found by accident. Try to cry at the second meeting, she'll believe me more if I show regret. It was the line that did it. The judge held up that page and looked at her. Julia didn't blink. But she didn't speak either. She knew what it meant. That morning, she'd worn gray. Hair flat. No statement necklace. No effect. Her voice, when she finally responded, cracked once. Just enough to seem real, except now, no one believed it anymore. The judge cleared his throat. This court finds that the petitioner's emotional abuse claims are not supported by credible evidence. Furthermore, attempts to fabricate narrative elements using therapeutic language are documented and verified. He paused. This constitutes legal misconduct. Her lawyer looked at the floor. The judge continued. Due to the severity of the misrepresentation, the court will not grant spousal support. The respondent retains ownership of the marital property. No appeal will be granted on these terms. I didn't smile. Just nodded. She lost the apartment. The car. The right to touch a cent of what I built. But that wasn't the real win. The real win was when I handed a sealed envelope to the clerk, one marked for public record inclusion. In it, a letter to the licensing board of her new therapist. A courtesy alert, not a complaint, just facts. That the client had a documented pattern of narrative manipulation. That this information was legally verified. The therapist deserved to know who was sitting on her couch. And if Julia tried this again with someone else, there'd be a record now. A paper trail. For once, the truth would arrive before the story. I walked out alone. No crowd. No applause. Just the echo of shoes on tile and a weight finally gone. Outside, the air felt different. Not warmer. Just cleaner. Evan clapped me on the shoulder. Most people explode. You built a case. I nodded. She taught me how. Because everything Julia used, therapy speak, soft-spoken weaponry, social camouflage, became the blueprint for her undoing. She tried to write a script where I broke first. Instead, I held the receipts. She lied with performance. I answered with proof. And now, every room she enters will echo with what she almost got away with. The final papers arrived on a Tuesday. Neutral envelope. No drama. Just ink, signatures, and the soft thud of an ending hitting the welcome mat. Inside. Divorce finalized. All claims retracted. Property formally mine. Zero spousal support. Mutual non-disparagement clause, which I didn't request, but her side begged for. It was ironic. She tried to brand me as the villain, the danger, the dark chapter. And now, the only thing she feared was what I hadn't said. The silence was hers now. Contracted. Legal. Permanent. I signed it in my office. Alone. One pen stroke that erased 6 years and 1,000 lies. I didn't send a response. Didn't say goodbye. Just filed it. Julia's final attempt to control the narrative was to lock it shut. No social posts. No comments. No clarifying threads. The silence she feared became the only shield she had left. I didn't care. I didn't need to talk. Everyone who mattered already knew the truth. Her own friends didn't reach out anymore. Her parents, from what I heard, had taken a break from communication. Her therapist dropped her. New employers ghosted her when they Googled too deep. Julia, the woman who curated perception like a mosaic, had become invisible. That's the real punishment. She can't post the truth because it exposes her lie. She can't post the lie because the truth is archived, court-backed, time-stamped, public. And me? I moved. Not far, just far enough. New apartment. New rhythm. Same job, but longer hours. I liked the silence now. It wasn't punishment anymore. It was peace. People ask if I'll date again. I say maybe. But the truth is, I don't want someone who loves the idea of me. I want someone who doesn't need to weaponize my silence. I donated the couch she picked. Threw out the dishes she insisted on. Kept one thing, the leather notebook where she outlined the story she wanted to sell. Sometimes I open it. Not out of nostalgia. Out of discipline. To remind myself how quiet betrayal can be. How softly it can sit beside you. Smile. Whisper. Rehearse. Julia didn't scream. She wrote. And now her name lives in the margins of a story she didn't get to finish. I keep everything in a fireproof lockbox. Not out of fear. Out of formality. Inside. Court documents. Her therapy transcripts. Printouts of emails she sent trying to pivot her lie. The photo of us from our 5th anniversary, where she'd already been seeing someone else and I didn't know it yet. And the notebook, the one with all the staged phrasing, pre-written tears, reminders like, use words like pattern and unsafe. I labeled it, Shadowbox. Not because I'm haunted. Because it belongs in the dark. It sits in the back of my closet, under winter coats. I check it once a year. Not to relive, to remember. Because some people don't yell when they break you. They whisper. They cry on cue. They write stories where your silence is guilt and their scripts are gospel. Julia thought therapy was a shield. But all she did was leave receipts. I found an old flash drive last month, one of hers, buried in the junk drawer. Plugged it in. More notes. Drafts of messages to friends. Emails she never sent. One file stood out. Statement in case things get bad. It read like a closing argument. I did what I had to do to survive. He'll never understand how trapped I felt. Sometimes survival looks like lies. And that's a kind of truth too. That line stuck with me. A kind of truth. The way she twisted language made it slippery. Made everything feel half true, half lie. Like drowning in fog. But documents don't fog up. They stay sharp. That's what saved me. Her story had emotion. Mine had evidence. And in court, where stories are swallowed whole, it's the footnotes that matter. Every now and then, someone asks how it ended. I say, it didn't end loud. It ended real. With a contract. A binder. A silent courtroom where her own words boxed her in. She used therapy like theater. I used it like a camera. Let her act. I rolled tape. The last time I saw her was by accident. Grocery store. Aisle 7. She was bent over a shelf of almond milk, hair shorter, eyes tired. No rings. No cart. Just a basket, mostly empty. She saw me before I saw her. Froze. Straightened. Waited. I nodded. Kept walking. She didn't speak. Neither did I. There was nothing left to say. Not because the anger had faded. But because the truth had already spoken. In full. Public. Sealed. The court record would outlive us both. After that, I stopped checking her socials. Blocked her email. Cleared the last of her photos from my cloud. Some ghosts you don't fight, you deny oxygen. And that's what I gave her, a quiet disappearance. No explosions. No final monologue. I left the house we fought in. I left the furniture we picked. I left the version of me she tried to write. But I kept the lesson. Some people use therapy as a scalpel. Some use it as a mirror. She used it as a microphone, amplifying lies until they sounded like hymns. I used it as a recorder. And when the world asked, I didn't scream. I played it back. That's what killed her version. Not rage. Not revenge. Playback. Now I live in a smaller place. Brighter windows. One key on my ring. No shadows in the kitchen. I don't tell people I'm divorced. I tell them I survived a fiction. I met someone new. Quiet, kind, no performance. I haven't told her about Julia. Not because I'm hiding it, but because the chapter's buried. Marked. Labeled. Filed. If she ever asks, I'll say. She tried to kill me with silence. I answered with proof. Now we both live with what we made. And I'll leave it there. No echo. Just the sound of a door that finally closed.